Okay, I am here with Professor Brian Peskin, who is an author of one of my favorite books. It's The PEO Solution. And this was a groundbreaking book when I read it many years ago, obviously still is, because there's so much information in my industry, the fitness industry, about the benefits of fish oil to
Yeah.
the point where even people who don't consume fish oil, right? People that are on a vegan diet, I'm on a plant-based diet, even there, they proliferate information on the benefits of high DHA, high EPA. Let's get that all from marine algae so that we get the benefits of fish oil too. But the reality is that there really aren't any benefits of fish oil and there's many negatives. So what I wanted to get into with you is how did you start going down this rabbit hole? When did you start researching fish oil in particular and then parent
You're
essentials?
cutting out horribly. I have no idea why.
Sorry, am I cutting out?
Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened.
Let me let's try starting again.
It says my internet connection is unstable.
Oh, yours? So it might be coming out. It might be coming from your end.
It said it. I don't know why. I'm on there's no VPN. There's no anything. I
Huh.
have no idea. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe if it recorded on my end, I didn't cut out on my side. So let's see how this goes.
Possible.
Can you hear me now though?
Oh no, perfect. Okay. It was just you blanked out basically totally.
Sometimes at the very beginning of a recording, it hasn't dialed in completely yet.
Gotcha.
The sound quality improves as it goes
Okay.
on. Yeah. So we should be clear.
I won't listen to it if it happens again.
We should be ready to go from here. So let's get into how you started research or why you started researching fish oil.
Well, I was always about plant-based oils, and the whole reason I got into the field, Mike, was because my wife became type 1 diabetic, doing everything, quote, right. She would exercise all the time, eat low fat, higher carb, was always thin, in her 30s became type 1. So I was on a path trying to help her, and I was in the plant-based oils, and I would go to the shows way back. I don't go to them now, but I used to, and I would see fish oil there. I want to make it very clear, I never had any vendetta against fish oil, but I would ask the wholesalers like Tree of Life and that sort of thing, are you selling any of this? And they'd go, no, nobody wants it. So I started thinking about, where did this whole thing come from? Well, a company has fish that's not real good and the top restaurant isn't going to buy it, right? So unfortunately, the nutritional industry is a dumping ground for waste products. What do I do with this? Sell it to the people that are desperate for solutions. And that's the nutritional industry. And it took about 20 years and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And what ends up happening is you pay universities to run studies. And believe me, you tell the university what you expect to see, and that's fair. But the problem is, they're pretty corrupted these days. Right. And you can get anybody to say anything you want. And I always follow the science. So I hope your audience will understand, studies are not science.
Right.
Number one, studies are not science. Science is physiology, biochemistry. I'm an engineer by training, so I graduated from MIT and was, taught really how to think there. Because I was going to be a musician in high school, and I wanted the quantitative scientific analysis. So it was really, really good for me. So what I did is I took the analogy of analyzing very sophisticated systems, because I'm an electrical engineer. So the input's your food, you're the system, the output is your state of health, disease state, energy, weight, all of that stuff. And I started with the system is perfect. Nature doesn't make mistakes. So if you look at a Ferrari, you can go, it runs awful. Well, you can look at the timing, you can look at the spark plugs, you can look at all kinds of stuff until you decide and take a look at, I put the wrong fuel in. You throw diesel fuel in a Ferrari, it's not going to run. Put in unleaded fuel, it's not going to run. So if we're running on the wrong fuel, we don't die right away. We don't stop. And this is why the medical profession can give wrong recommendations forever and never get pinned, because unless you die right away, like in a drug study, you can die later. And you should see all the lawsuits with pharmaceutical companies. So unless you die right away, you can get wrong recommendation after wrong recommendation and wrong recommendation. So I was always about the plant-based oils like seed oils, flaxseed, evening primrose oil, pumpkin seed, sunflower seed, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And when I started looking at fish oil, it was, my goodness, it's not just a 0, it's a -20, like a trans fat.
Yeah.
And basically, everybody needs to know, Mike, fish oil is antifreeze for fish.
Yeah.
So fish are living in very cold water, like 30, 40 degrees. If I throw one of us in it, we die of hypothermia. You know, it's too low, you die. So nature has 2 choices. Either have alcohol for the fish, because a bottle of vodka won't freeze in the freezer, right? You can chill it very cold. Right. Or what's called long-chain fatty acids, and that's what I specialize in. So DHA EPA is a long chain. It's not an EFA. It's not essential. Your body makes them. And that's what it uses, because those don't freeze either. And Dr. Rowan, co-author of PEO Solutions, said, Brian, I got a great one for you. He looked at an article showing warm water fish at 70 degrees compared with cold water fish at 30. And he goes, guess what the difference in EPA DHA is in the warm water fish? 14 times less than the cold water fish. So the higher temperature, the less of this stuff you need. What are we, Mike? 98.6. Right. And the dosages are what's called suprapharmacologic overdoses, meaning they are physiologically so high, they will kill you. Now, I'm an engineer, so the first thing I look at is how much DHA EPA does the body use on a daily basis? I've never seen anybody even start there. Yeah. Luckily, you could find out. The USDA ran tests, and the National Institutes of Health did. And what they did is they did radioisotope testing so they can see where it goes. And the answer for a big brain guy, 7.2 milligrams. Wow. It could be as low as 3, but 7.2 for someone even bigger than you, maybe 240, 250 pounds. Yep. I mean, a big guy, 7.2. So say, okay, double it, because that was just the brain. The eye has it too. 15 milligrams. If I look at 1,000 gram or 1,000 milligram capsule, 1 gram capsule of fish oil, which is a very standard size, 60% of it will be DHA EPA. That's 600. 600 divided by 14 is 60. I'll divide it right now. I mean, 600. 600 divided by 14 equals, okay, it's 43. Right. That's 1 capsule. We have physicians out there saying take 4 and 5 grams. Oh, yeah. So 45 times 4, the average person taking fish oil is getting 20 to 500 times too much. Now, to put that in perspective, take 100 aspirin and tell me how you feel in the morning. Don't do it. I'm being very facetious. You will be dead. You'll bleed to death. But this is the pharmacologic overdose on a daily basis. And that's where you have to start with this. I've never seen anybody on the other side where I've debated or had a conversation even know about how much is used on a daily basis. Right. And when I tell them, their mouth drops, they don't know what the heck to say. And that's where you start. So look in the mirror, everybody. If you don't see a fish looking back, and I assure you, you won't, you don't need this. And it's even worse because our body makes it. So there's what's called the parents, and that's parent omega-6, parent omega-3. What you need to know is there's 2 types of oils your body can't make on its own. Has to get them from food, okay? The problem is on the omega-6 side, Mike, the food processing. And they have to shut down the oxygen transfer. And the proof of that is if you walk in the fish market section of your supermarket, it'll typically smell. And that is the DHA EPA going bad. And it oxidizes at room temperature. This is known. You can't stop it. Dr. Rowan sent me an article with monkeys taking fish oil, and they would get the age spots. That's called lipofuscin. And basically, the article said no amount of antioxidant could stop it. So if anybody has age spots, that's proof you're getting too much oxidized oils, and your organs have the same problem. So they don't touch the omega-3 side because nobody cooks with omega-3. Nobody fries with flax oil, right, for example, or bakes with flax oil. They may sprinkle it on the seed, but nobody's cooking with it. So it's all the omega-6 oils, sunflower, canola. All the omega-6 oils are what they bake and cook in, and they stop that oxygen transfer so you don't have bagels and rice, oatmeal smelling like fish that's gone bad. And I understand that. The problem is by stopping that, they kill us. And Otto Warburg, MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner, conclusively showed the prime cause of cancer, because I really specialize in disease prevention, and I know you're a major athlete, and we'll talk about all the applications to that because they're really cool.
Interesting too, though, for sure.
But the disease prevention is a big deal.
Yeah.
Conclusively showed the lack of, this ties into athletics, the prime cause of cancer is lack of cellular oxygenation, not in the bloodstream. Take a pulse oximeter, put your finger in. Anybody that's been to the hospital or has a machine, you're 94 to 98 blood saturation in the blood. That's not the issue. Everybody is up there unless you have a disease, you're getting chemotherapy or something, or radiation. It's in the tissue itself. And they did a phenomenal experiment in 1953 in America with scientists depriving heart cells of oxygen intermittently. So I deprive them, give it full bore, deprive it full bore. 2 years, every heart cell culture became cancerous. The ones that had the oxygen, no cancer. And then in 55, that experiment was verified. So the prime cause of cancer is lack of cellular oxygen. And that's been what I looked at, because the question was, why would that ever happen? And it was because of food processing.
Wow.
So Dr. Campbell wrote a 1976 article talking about this that I've never seen anybody even reference. I give credit where it's due, and I'm an engineer, and if you've ever seen Impossible Engineering or one of the engineering shows on Discovery, it's always, to figure this out, we went back 50 years to the brilliant engineer, blah, blah, blah. And then we used his result, and he used the result of another brilliant engineer from 20 years before. Medicine, Mike, you never see it. It's always like, I'm a genius here. Well, who else is there? What do you mean, who else? There's nobody. It's me. And it's unbelievable. It's like there's no science. There's only studies. Remember, studies should confirm the science, not the opposite to it. You need a metabolic pathway, why the result would even happen.
Right.
And they don't build on the shoulders of anybody. This is why the nutritional and health field is a big merry-go-round. Every 20 years, it goes right back to the beginning. I don't know what to eat. Do I eat high carbs? Do I eat low fat? Do I eat high fat? You can put a man on the moon. You can make cell phones. Well, I can't tell you what the heck to eat. You know how embarrassing that should be for anybody that knows any biochemistry. It's all known. It's always been known. Yeah. But they want to make money by having a big discussion every so many years. Carbohydrates are bad. You know that, but a lot of people listening, they are not good. But back to the fish oil thing. So I got very grounded in how the parent omega-6 in the cell membrane. And the big reason we need to know that, Mike, is because I specialize in cell membrane structure and cell structure. 100 trillion cells, everyone has what's called a bilipid membrane. Out of that membrane, it's all fat. So a cell membrane is half protein, half fat. There's virtually no carb in there. A little bit of carb embedded, but not structurally. So it's half fat, half protein. Out of that half fat, 25 to 33% are the parent oils. Parent omega-3, parent omega-6, you have to get from food. So they're actually the brick and mortar of every cell in your body. And I have seen big name physicians go, the only thing that the parents are good for is their, quote, derivatives. And that's GLA, that's AA, arachidonic acid, in the omega-3 side, that would be DHA, EPA. They come from the parent omega-3.
Yeah.
And a derivative is the offspring, and they're longer. They're not shorter. So they're built up. They're made longer. And the parents are absolutely critical. And on the derivative side, the first one is called PGE1. This is a big athletic thing. So you need the brick and mortar. But with PGE1, it is blood flow. So it is the transport system to getting all your nutrition, all your oxygen to all those tissues. PGE1 is the body's #1 anti-inflammatory. So it's a vasodilator in the lungs and in the vascular system. So that is the first major derivative, the omega-6 side. The other one is called PGI2, which is termed prostacyclin, That's from arachidonic acid. And that makes it where the platelets can't stick together, can't stick to an arterial wall. It's also a vasodilator. Well, guess what? Those are the conditions of a heart attack. If the platelets don't stick together and can't stick to an arterial wall, how do you get a heart attack? And you get oxygenated too. You can't. One more thing people need to know, the intima, which is the inner lining of the artery. Just picture a straw. The inner lining is all parent omega-6. 100%. There's no fish oil in there. So if anybody says fish oil stops heart attacks, how? I'd like to see how. Also, all of your skin, women love this, 100% omega-6. So your skin is the same thing inside the artery and the capillaries in the brain. A lot of people are really petrified of Alzheimer's, dementia, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Capillaries are 100% parent omega-6. There's hundreds of millions in the brain. Alzheimer's, I want everybody listening to know, is not from beta amyloid. Beta amyloid is what they've looked at for 25 years. It's a protein that's leaking out of the cell. And the reason it's leaking out of the cell is because the bad parent omega-6 in there. It just leaks and this comes out, and that's all it is. It is a vascular disease. Actually, I went to Methodist Hospital about a year ago, and they had his dementia and Alzheimer's, a vascular disease, and every physician there said yes. They really didn't know why. So I would talk to some people. I didn't lecture there or anything, and they were all just enamored with my work. They go, we're not looking at that. We're not. I said, this is it. But they all get grants and funds. So here's why people don't cross reference with science.
Yeah.
I'm paid to look at this and only this.
Right.
I can't do that. I'm not paid a nickel. I'm not paid that. And people are paid to just do articles. How many articles did you publish? 500. I see anybody with his name on 500 articles in medical journals. The first comment I go is, what did those 500 articles accomplish? Do you have a new drug? Do you have a new therapeutic? What the heck do you have? Typically, it's nothing. So publishing in the medical field has become an end in itself. And this is one of the big reasons why it doesn't advance. Most of the articles are not worth the paper they're printed on. They're actual garbage. And it's not just me saying this. Dr. Angel, she was the publisher of the New England Journal of Medicine, or JAMA, one of the two, but one of the top ones in America, actually quit. She said about 1 in 10 articles are the proper quality that we should even be publishing, but because we get so few, we're publishing garbage. And she couldn't take it anymore. She had a conscience, and it's very, very tough. So the parent oils are critical, and for the oxygenation, Otto Warburg showed cancer spontaneously induced 35% decrease in cellular oxygen. 35% is close to a third. Yeah. So you don't even need a half. But if you don't have the proper structure with the parent omega-6, you can easily get 50%. And Professor Lanz did a superb study, 1990, showed percentage-wise of what goes into that cell membrane is what you eat. So if I'm eating 50% fast food processed garbage, it doesn't even have to be fast food. The best restaurants are using canola oil, for example, that's adulterated.
It's nearly impossible to eat healthy out. You know,
it's impossible.
Because
it's going to be everywhere because they're giving you the wrong stuff. You're absolutely right.
They're not going to use the healthiest oils for your meal. They're going to use the cheapest oils they can.
You got it.
For maximizing profit. So
absolutely. And they want them to last forever, Mike. Right. They want to change that oil once a month. Yeah. So there's extenders. When New York came out and said, we're banning trans fats, I turned to a colleague and I said, my God, what they're going to substitute it with will be worse.
Yeah.
And what they substituted it with is called an interesterified oil. It is worse. It raises the heck out of diabetics' blood sugar levels. It makes them worse. It's a horrible state of affairs. So people need the parent oils, and they come from seeds. So the best way is flax seeds, sunflower seeds, and the ratios, overall, we need 11-1, because all you hear about is we're overdosed on omega.
Is it 11-1, 6-3?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's the other point you bring up that conflicts with some of the common information, because everyone's always
6-2-3.
Right, everyone's always going omega-3 is the most important.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah, there was a product called Udo's oil that was super
Yeah.
popular for a while, and that was a 2-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, and that was
And your skin becomes horrible. He actually tested it on himself and said if you go with too much omega-3, because remember, there's no omega-3 in the skin.
Right.
So you start overdosing with omega-3, what happens is the body is forced to shove it in the tissue improperly. This is what happens with the fish oil consumption of the super pharmacologic overdose of 20 to 500 times too much. It's forced into all the tissues. I'm going to give you one in a minute. Big athletic implication. But the biggest light, it'll go into the skin. And what happens when it's in the skin? Remember I said it goes rancid at room temperature, 70 degrees?
Yeah.
Imagine what happens when you're out in the sunlight. It's not the UVA and B that everybody talks about. It's the darn heat. That's why there's places that people are covered up and get skin cancer, and the dermatologists go, I don't know how the heck this happens. It should be, it's the heat. And because I did a paper, it was superb, correlated the highest fish oil consuming countries with the highest cancer rates for guys. I think prostate cancer and skin cancer correlated absolutely directly. Direct correlation with this. But we are getting highly misled. So the average organ is 4-to-1, parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. The muscles are about 6.5-to-1, parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. The adipose tissue is about 22-to-1, parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. So if you're on a fast, you're supposed to be using the omega-6 coming out. And when you average it all out, it's 11-to-1. So anybody telling you we're overdosed on omega-6, they missed one word. You're overdosed on adulterated omega-6 because remember, it goes in as a proportion. So if I have 50% of my cell membranes, cancer will be in my future and heart disease. And major article came out 2018 called Journal of Biological Chemistry. Now, see, no physicians read that. They read JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet, things like that. They do not read hardcore chemical journals. And first thing they looked at, diabetic patients, which have 2 to 4 times the heart disease of a non-diabetic, has 1.7 times DHA level in their cardiac mitochondrial enzymes. So if you want to mimic a diabetic, go ahead and take fish oil. You don't want to be doing that, I'm joking. You don't want that. And what happened was dietary intervention as a tool to study remodeling of mitochondrial phospholipids in a respiratory enzyme activity. Now, the mitochondria are the cellular energy components of the cell. They're like breathing for us with our nose and lungs. Well, the mitochondria do it at the cell level, and can be hundreds of mitochondria per cell. So there's 100 trillion cells. There's even more mitochondria. The inner layer of the mitochondria is called cardiolipin. That's all parent omega-6. There's no parent omega-3, and it gets worse. They talk about that in the article. Parent omega-6 rescues the major remodeling in the cardiolipin lipidome induced by long-term intake of DHA. So if you're taking DHA from fish oil, it will displace the omega-6 of the cardiolipin and shut it down. Shut it down. These results demonstrate mechanistically it's not the loss of the parent omega-6, it's the replacement of the omega-6 with the DHA. And they showed up to 50% less cardiac mitochondrial enzyme activity, which means less energy. That's called cardiac failure. That's congestive heart disease, where your heart doesn't have the energy to go boom. Well, that's the last thing an athlete wants, is something like this. So this is horrible. 2018, I did not see one medical journal pick this up. I did not see any online publisher of any of this, like Medline or Medscape, anything, talk about this. And the doctors just aren't getting it, so they don't know. So all that's happening is fish oil, fish oil, fish. The minute I talk to a cardiologist and tell them this, it's my goodness, I'm never recommending fish oil again. Down by up to half. And I sent you one for sports athletes, and feel free to distribute that paper to anybody you want.
I did.
It is the DHA increases the sugar in the bloodstream, so you can't use it to fuel a muscle. Initially, muscles run on sugar. It's called glycolysis. Longer term, they run on oxygen. And what these oils do, what the parent oils do, if you take them, 25% higher threshold before you get that lactic acid burn, which means you are running with the oxygen longer. And you also recover about 25% faster. So these parent oils are one of the biggest things anybody that's into athletics can use. Because I used to train with bodybuilders, Lee Labrada. He came in second in the Olympia. Yeah. Samir Bannout won it. This is going back many years.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this back then. And the difference after, I stopped training with them, I still kept it going, was, my goodness, I'm not getting the burns. You can just go and go and go. You go to failure. These guys did a reverse pyramid. So they started with humongous weights, and you would do it to the level where you just drop the damn thing. Right. You fail, but you wouldn't be getting the burns. And that second or third day, the second day is where typically it's agony. That won't happen. So it was amazing. And that's the proof, the oxygen. Then in PO solution, Dr. Cavallino from Italy, who is a sports team's physician, did a test with lactic acid. His numbers were incredible. Very, very little lactic acid, which means he was running on oxygen, getting way more energy, because running with oxygen is much more efficient, but it takes some time to get it going. So there's reasons for that. But this gives you the best of both worlds. Also, regarding the fish oil, wrecking it for athletes, the oily fish was the worst. All that does is make the blood sugar stay in the bloodstream, where it ruins everything and can't be used by the muscles when you need them. Because if a tiger was going to attack you, or you do a high intensity fast workout, you're running on sugar right away. So if I have to run, it's boom. Oh, yeah. Everything is shut off, where blood flow to the organs aren't needed. They go to your muscles, and that's sugar-based. It may take a few minutes before the oxygen kicks in, but you want that going into the muscle right away, not hanging around your bloodstream going, I can't use it. And this was published too, and no one gets it. It's just a tragedy. That's why I get so passionate about this. Yeah. Because my charter is giving information either physicians or healthcare professionals haven't seen before. That, I don't want to regurgitate stuff. I don't give diagrams where there's 50 things that everybody already knows. I want to give you things you haven't seen, like the, Journal of Biological Chemistry article. It goes on and on with this.
Well, how much volume of parent essential oils? Let's say someone like me, I'm 200 pounds, I'm pretty lean. What would be the volume that you recommend for someone like me that is
much less than you would think? About a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon a day, not a tablespoon, teaspoon. Right. It is that effective. It's the biggest bang for the buck you will ever see. For an athlete, it's about $1.50 a day tops to get the oils you need, and to see the difference, and the difference is within a week. The energy goes through the roof. You'll sleep better. You'll have less pain. You'll have more endurance, faster recuperation, of course. And your appetite for carbs goes down. Right. So if you're an athlete like yourself, you can eat carbs if you want them, because you're burning them. The problem is someone doing nothing is looking at you going, Mike, what do you, maybe 20 years ago you ate a lot of carbs. You're not doing it now. But then they would mimic you. But wait a minute, you're not doing any of the exercise. You can't mimic him. You're not doing anything like he's doing, you idiot. And this is the problem. This is what the high carbohydrate turned everybody in America diabetic and overweight, and especially the women. They are atrocious today. When I get back from Europe, I come back to America, and it's, my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. This looks like cartoon characters. And the diabetes epidemic is worldwide, because the rest of the world follows us. I don't know why, but they do. We don't know what the hell we're doing, but they follow us. And they have created, I was the first to say diabetes is a created disease by the patient unknowingly, because Dr. Habib told me pre-1940, here's the number of type 2 diabetics, 0.
Be right back.
An absolute created disease.
Okay. So 1 teaspoon. Now, what if?
That's about all you need.
So with food sources, I mean, you're getting a variety of nuts and seeds.
Nuts and seeds, and I'll give you one on the nuts, like walnuts. Oh, the Seventh-day Advents live very healthfully, and it's because of the omega-3 in their walnuts. Well, why don't you analyze a walnut, and I'll tell you what's in it. It's 5 times more apparent omega-6 than apparent omega-3.
Yeah.
So the omega-3 is very, very weak. There is no analogy on the omega-3 side of PGE1 or PGI2 like on the omega-6 side. None. So the omega-6 side is like 20 times more important and more powerful. Now, you need the parent omega-3 because of the structure. And DHA and EPA, but Brian, the brain has 14% DHA. It does. It also has 10% arachidonic acid from the omega-6 side. So to an engineer, that's 40% difference. 40% is the same order of magnitude. It's basically the same amount, and they don't talk about it. So you do need some. The other thing nobody knows is the half-life. How long does that DHA stay in the brain? 2.5 years. What? The same DHA from 2.5 years ago is still hanging around. It's supposed to if it has the antioxidants, because your body makes them, right? If you have the right minerals, you make antioxidants. The problem is, remember I told you DHA, EPA oxidize spontaneously? If you have some poor person listening to these people mistakenly, it goes bad the minute you ingest it. Instant. All the antioxidants from your brain rush to the bloodstream to stop the oxidation there, and now your poor brain is oxidizing. That's another big reason we're seeing so much dementia today. Remember the capillaries? They're clogged. Also, if you're asking what's in a clog, guess what? No saturated fat. So you can eat saturated fat. Bacon, butter, eggs, cheese. I suggest you get organic because you don't want the additives to it. There's no saturated fat in a clogged artery. And I ask medical students this all the time, and they know it's a trick question. They don't know.
Yeah.
0. When I first saw it, it was okay. It said 0. This was like in 1990. High resolution chromatography is how it's measured. Accurate as heck. It was accurate to 0.1%, but I didn't know. So I'm thinking maybe it's accurate to say 20%. So if it's 19%, they say it's 0 because it's a cutoff. If it's 20%, it's 20, or 21 is 20. But if it's less than 20, no, it's 0.1%. So there's none. So the intelligent question is, what the heck is clogging my artery? 80% adulterated omega-6. I've never seen anybody stress this. Obviously, it's in the Journal of Lipids and things like that. It was in the New England Journal of Medicine, actually. That's where I got it. So it was in America's top medical journal, and the doctors don't even know this. Most cardiologists don't even know it.
And the
primary, I'll give you $100, tell me what's clogging your arteries.
Right.
They won't know.
The primary source of adulterated omega-6s would be the oils, right?
100%. There's only one
What
source.
about whole food nuts and seeds? Are there problems to avoid there as well? Is there something?
Very little problems with the whole foods, raw foods, vegan. It's always best to go organic because you don't get anything. The processing of the oils is highly chemicalized. And for example, margarine, and we were told to live on margarine, don't eat butter. Well, you can put margarine in the garage, come back a year later, no fungus, no virus, no mold, no mildew, nothing to even eat the damn stuff.
Right.
Because the animals know it's not. So a whole foods diet, there's a couple of things. I'm a life systems engineering scientist, so we look at how bad something is compared to how good something is, how bad something isn't. So for example, a trans fat, that's a -20. Olive oil is a 0 because olive oil is omega-9. It's not omega-6 parent. It's not omega-3 parent. Omega-9 your body makes.
Right.
You can actually make them from carbohydrates, but it makes them. So it's a 0. The parent essential oils are a +20. So how good something is, how bad something isn't. The hormones in the meat, for example, are -20. They're all steroidal, and they're feminine. This is why guys' sperm counts are down by half. This is why women are getting cancer all over the place. Estrogen is turning on her and killing her. That's about the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. No, you're getting overdosed on it from the food you're eating. Right. Same thing with the guys. So a raw foods diet, that's Dr. Rowan, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you do not need to be concerned about eating meat either. Always go natural or organic is best because it's the additives. They're not in there. Now, if you can't afford it, you can cook it more well done, because I had a lab test this too. Yeah. I gave a well done piece of meat and I gave a raw piece of meat and said, analyze the steroid level, and it went down by 95% with the well done. So I like well done anyway. I like the char. I'm not concerned about the cancer stuff in the least with that. It's a bunch of nonsense. It came out years ago. They were petrifying everybody with the classilids or something, some long-term thing. I'm not big on names. That's why I went to MIT. It's 3 letters. But I understand what the heck it is, and they jumped the gun. And I mean, people have eaten this way with charcoal. There's no cancer issue. It's garbage. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So you mainly do raw foods or whole foods, or what are you doing?
I mainly do whole foods. I've been a plant-based guy for a long time, so I eat a lot of nuts and seeds and so forth.
Beautiful. So you're getting the oils.
Yeah.
You can do it without a supplement. It's just for the average person. I tell them, if you're not eating that way, spend $1.50 a day and guarantee it's not an issue for you.
Yeah,
but Dr. Rowan doesn't need the supplements, and you may not either if you're eating the nuts and seeds, especially
just for nutritional insurance. I wouldn't mind the supplement just to make sure every day it's consistent.
You're like me. I'm not a big fast food guy either. I cook a lot at home. Yeah. I spend the money on the organic and I live at Whole Foods.
Right.
But for the insurance, I do it too. Even with that, I do it too. And I do a few things because I have to tell people, in spite of not being perfect, my heart is 20 years younger biologically than someone my age. And that's with no exercise. Because I can't do things to compound stuff. I have to go, I'm doing not as bad as the other guy, but I do a few other things that are compromising. Yeah. And even with that, I'm 20 years younger. And the cardiologist can't believe this. And I say, here's how it's done, man. And it's unbelievable. But I'm a hardcore scientist, so I hope people will read a book like PEO Solution before looking at supplements or anything, because I want you to understand the science, Mike, of why you may need these and what they do. And I'm one of the very rare ones. I give you a summary of it, but I also give you the actual quotes of what the medical textbook, Harper's Illustrated Biochemistry, textbook of medical physiology, the Journal of Lipids. I give you the actual quotes of what they say. Everybody else gives you their quote summary or a headline, and typically it's not even true. It's horrible. I don't do quotes of quotes. I go through journal articles and typically have to pull 5 levels deep of article referencing an article referencing. I used to live in the medical library at MD Anderson. They were nice enough to let me spend years there at the Jesse Jones Library at MD Anderson. They even let me take pictures. And that's a no-no because it was commercial and Hidden Story of Cancer. That's where I did all my research, and they were so impressed. They let me take pictures and put it on the cover of the book. And so everything with me is hardcore science. How's it work? It's magic, witchcraft. No. If you can't give me a defined metabolic, it's like fish oil made my skin smoother. How? There's no fish oil in your skin, sir. Is it a puppet? What's it controlling? I mean, it is possible it could modulate something, but tell me what the hell it's modulating. Like a transistor happens that way. Right. I assure you it doesn't happen with fish oil in the skin. The answer is you're nuts. Now, what fish oil does is act as a long-term steroid. And an MD, a dermatologist, Dr. Karp, actually told me this. He goes, Brian, we do get some short-term positive results in people that have psoriasis, that have bad skin. That's because the fish oil acts as a steroid, and it does. A steroid shuts down all the EFA metabolism. So when I told you PGE1, PGI2, which is prostacyclin, that gets shut down with a long-term steroid. And if you don't believe me, ask your physician, hey, doc, if I stay on a steroid for 3 years, is that okay? they'll look at you like you're insane, ready for the lunatic asylum, because they know the damage steroids do. They're okay short term for a month or two, but that's it. And fish oil acts like a long-term steroid, shuts down everything. So you just don't want it. You don't want it. And back in another big one that you'll like with hormones, because I know you do a lot with hormones. Cholesterol is the transporter of the parent essential oils.
Yeah. Okay,
so you have a cholesterol molecule. Just picture it's magnetized to the parent omega-6, parent omega-3, and some of the other ones, DHA, EPA, to a very, very little extent. There's just not much there. It's less than 0.5% of the parents. I want to tell everybody this. Make sure they understand it. Less than 0.5% of the parents go to derivatives. They used to, in the old days, think all the parents went to derivatives. So here we're going to give the derivatives like DHA, EPA from fish oil and make it easy on the body so it doesn't have to convert the parents. I could say okay, but they didn't know it was a lousy 0.5%. And they thought it was the majority. They didn't even understand the structure in the cell membrane by these people because they're not physiologists. And that's really what I look at, theoretical physiology. That's where I spend all my time. So they made very fundamental mistakes and screwed up everybody with these overdoses, and they don't even understand their overdosage. So but with the hormones, the biosynthesis of steroidal hormones, because people will think the cholesterol is just by itself. It gets separated from the PEOs. But the parent essential oils stay close by, and the defined fatty acid composition is unique and specific for each of the steroidogenic tissues. And this is Molecular Cell Endocrinology in 2002. Selective cholesterol ester uptake, and that's what it's called. It's called an ester when you get rid of the water. It's just magnetized is what I like saying. But the area is critical. So if you have the wrong structure magnetized to the cholesterol, you are in trouble. Your hormones don't work. And it even gets worse. If you have adulterated parent omega-6 in the cell membrane structure, your body gets in low-grade inflammation all the time. This was in Nature Reviews, Molecular Cell Biology, Chronic Inflammation, 2017. There's a thermodynamic reason for it, but your body is staying in chronic inflammation, and everybody knows today, inflammation is at the heart. Cardiovascular disease, cancer. Remember I told you cancer is oxygen problem. Well, what does inflammation do? The way the body stops inflammation, giving oxygen. It's like putting a flame out with a big fire hose with water. Well, oxygen is the analogy to the water in the fire hose. Trouble is, if I'm grabbing oxygen here, it's not getting it over here. And that's why cancer can be in any tissue. Otto Warburg actually published this. It's only where that oxygen deficiency is, but it can be anywhere. So if you overdose on this fish oil, you're again displacing the cell membrane. It'll have the fish oil in it. Chronic inflammation all the time. All of this is published. It's unbelievable. Breast cancer. Cancer was my first love, and that's where I spent 5 years with writing Hidden Story of Cancer with Otto Warburg's work. Myoepithelial cells are a dynamic barrier to epithelial dissemination. What this complicated wording is even in breast cancer, the cell membrane, which is parent omega-6, epithelial tissue, which is your skin, medical profession always uses big terms, but almost every organ has a layer of epithelial skin tissue around it. That's a carcinoma. Okay, 90% are all skin related. Well, if the breast tissue, it's all fat, right? It's 85% fat. That's why I would expect breast cancer to be a #1 cancer. And of course it is, because that's where all the junk oils you eat with the processing and the steroids and the hormones and the preservatives end up. But cancer, when it tries to leave that area, the skin is supposed to grab it back. And there was an incredible video about it. It's on my website if you look at it. It should give you the link to the video. But it can't when the epithelial content is ruined because you have defective oils. And it's just tragic. Scientists discover a dynamic cellular defense against breast cancer invasion. Watch fat cells help heal a wound. I'm very, very big in wound healing. Now it's known fat. Remember the fat stores?
Yeah.
It's dynamic. They thought for an eternity fat just sits there, it does nothing, it's not dynamic. Wrong. The medical field has never been so 180 degrees wrong, time after time after time, in everything. Even what they did for the whole COVID thing. Right. The number of wrong things that they should have known better, to me, is indefensible. But that's the profession. Yeah. I mean, I'm not here to criticize.
Well, speaking of COVID, can having optimal levels of parent essential oils in your diet offer protection by rejuvenating your immune system and keeping your cells protected?
Very good question. The answer is yes. This came out in 2019. The parent omega-6 and some of the derivatives, AA, DHA, EPA, which come from the parent omega-3 your body makes. And by the way, they showed that even vegetarians eating no fish got about 85% of the blood levels of DHA, EPA, the omega-3 side, from just the parents. Right. Because these guys were vegetarian. Right. So they weren't eating any fish at all.
Right.
Your body makes it. Now, there is an impairment if you're diabetic, if you're a big drinker, alcohol, if you're undergoing chemotherapy, radiation, have a disease. The delta-6 desaturase is what it's called, will be impaired, but not destroyed. They act like it doesn't work at all. That's absolutely wrong. If it didn't work at all, everybody'd be dead, because you have to have that. It's the first one, and then things go down the chain. So what I like doing is in a supplement, anybody that I consult with, I recommend having something called GLA, which bypasses that enzyme. So anybody that has a compromised enzyme, which again, diabetes, my wife is type 1, that's what got me into the whole field, it bypasses that and will maximize the PGE1, which is the anti-inflammatory. So anybody bodybuilding, anybody doing kettlebell like you do, anybody that has stress on those joints with inflammation,
right,
arthritic potential, phenomenal what PGE1 does. Absolutely phenomenal. You don't need NSAIDs, you don't need steroids. A lot of people just don't need that. So fat actually heals wounds, because I do a lot with diabetic foot ulcers, and the fat is critical. That's where the wound healing is. Actually, the fat, the membrane, is the intelligence of the cell. If I rip out its nucleus, the cell lasts for months. If I rip out its lipid membrane, lasts for 2 weeks. So they're wrong again, once again. It's not the nucleus that's telling the cell what to do. It's the membrane. And insulin resistance, for example, if that membrane's screwed up, it's like plastic. Insulin comes in, which is a hormone, all your hormones, steroidal hormone, sexual hormone, I don't care what it is. It comes in, it bounces off. So what's that? It's resistance. Now I need more to go through. So you don't want a plastic membrane. Because I would have physician after physician, Brian, oxygen goes through the cell membrane. It's a small chain. It just diffuses right in. I said, yeah, doc, would it diffuse right in if it was plastic? What? I said, yeah. That's margarine, by the way, that you told people to eat. Right. So if you have a plastic membrane, would it diffuse right in? They go, no. I go, well, we're done then, aren't we? I mean, I'm very short. I speak very fast. But like I said, I learned how to think. So my memory isn't big. I don't give a damn about the terms. I care about the pathway. And I tell doctors, you got a huge memory, but I'll thank you. And I'm usually going to win. And that's why I try adding and making discoveries, not regurgitating. Like the applications to these oils to diabetic foot ulcers is going to revolutionize the entire field. So it is very, very exciting with what these oils do. But back to the COVID, any virus is typically lipid-based. Most have a lipid on it. Right. The oils dissolve it. So what happens is it basically, the virus, it leaks. The membrane's gone and it just leaks. It also makes it where it can't replicate. Even if I have a virus in me, and right now we have 20 viruses. Right. Even have pneumonia in your mouth. If I do a swab, you'll have pneumonia. Well, Brian, I'm not in the hospital for pneumonia. Why not? Because there's a density. There's a load that's needed. Same thing for this virus. Just being in contact with it, I could care less. you're in contact with all kinds of stuff. You have something called an immune system. So the whole key is I want my immune system up here. I want my attacker down here.
Right.
That's the key. And these oils are phenomenal. Actually, a second paper came out. I didn't put it on my website. The website's just my name, brianpeskin.com. You can look at things for nothing. Second paper came out saying the same thing with how these oils disrupt the virus and kill it. And not a word in the medical field, because I have colleagues all over the world go, Brian, we're looking nothing. I said, don't hold your breath. There will be nothing, because they want drugs. You know, their money is made on the drug. And nobody I know taking my oils, not saying everybody would contact me, I've gotten 0 contacts from anybody using these oils with COVID. It's right on my website how they destroy this virus. So
chances are people taking your oils are more health conscious individuals to start with.
That's true too.
The fact that they even know about you, they're researching things that can affect their health and fitness.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that the parent essential oils don't help. I'm just saying that it's in a healthy people are going to gravitate towards those.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. And it's hard not to change 5 things at once. And this is what happened with fish oil. They give it fish oil. Are you sure that's the only thing that you were monitoring that changed? Right. Well, no, they did this. Then how can you attribute it to the one thing? You can't do that.
Right. You're doing 20 different things.
It's hard. You can only change one at a time. Right. And you know, that takes time and that takes money. Yeah. People don't want to do that. I want to change 5 things. You can do it, but all you can say is these 5 things that I changed together gave me this outcome. You can't say which one did it. So when we do stuff, it's just take these oils, change nothing else. I know the oils did it. So this is all I do. I'm not an amateur. 100% of my time is on this, 25 years, and I'm brutal. I won't publish anything until, it's like Otto Warburg. He wouldn't publish anything until it was 100% true. I've never published anything that was wrong. The only time I got a little sidetracked is I thought fruit was all sugar. And it really wasn't, because my wife, type 1 diabetic, I gave her 10 ounces of peaches and her blood sugar went up by 15 points. Should have gone up by 150. And it was, what the hell is this? This is impossible. Where's it going? Because it's in there. And so in PEO Solution, I talk about a great thing for diabetics. It's the protein powder fruit smoothie combo. So it fills the diabetic up with the volume in the stomach. And also the sweet tooth, because we do have a sweet tooth, not meant for refined sugar. It's meant for fruit. Fruit is different. And I talk about it in the book. And that was the only time I was a little off, because the medical physiology textbooks didn't get into it either. So I was misled by them. But that's it. 25 years, one little area. That's it. Yeah. I typically lead the pack. I've never been reversed, ever.
Well, you're definitely clearly really well researched, because you delineate the difference between studies and experiments really in the book. And that's important, because people always quote studies. And I think most people, when they talk about studies, they don't really know what they're talking about. You know?
They don't at all. So people
about it as if it's an experiment.
No, they don't. I mean, there's a lot of science to know in statistics. Luckily, when I was in school, I had courses in it too. The average person has had none. And here's the big deal with fish oil. 15,000 supposed experiments, okay? Right. They run a 95% confidence interval, which means if I do the experiment 100 times, 95 times, I'll get these kind of results. Well, that means 5% of the time, I get a false positive. So even though the study fails, it looks like it works. Well, what's 5% of 15,000? 750. Right. So that means fish oil has 750 studies floating around out there that look like the stuff works, when indeed it doesn't. And my joke is, why on God's earth would you do 15,000 studies for anything? For gravity, I do 2. I throw a brick off the building, it falls, and then I have you verify it. Does it do the same thing, or does it shoot off towards the sun? It falls. We're done. You don't keep redoing it every damn day, Let's see if it works today. That's why science. So the study.
How many experiments do you have to do to prove the same thing? That's a good point. It's almost as if they keep.
Nobody asks it.
They keep doing the studies to hopefully confirm the inconsistencies or mitigate the inconsistencies that come up the more time you do it.
Absolutely.
You're trying to get a different result. let's just keep running this experiment. I was like, okay, now we're getting the result we wanted, or at least we can frame it in a way that it looks like.
You're absolutely right. Everything with fish oil, like post 2014, has failed. Every one of them. It does nothing for macular degeneration in the eye. Does nothing with cognitive development. It does nothing to make young kids smarter, infants smarter. They've looked at all of this. It does nothing for heart disease. Cochrane Reviews, which is the best reviewer of medical studies in the world, did a scathing article a couple of years back on fish oil. Complete failure. Now, you may be thinking, but wait a minute, I saw something on TV for Lavazza or something that had something for the heart. They do. And when this came out, I asked some colleagues, I said, what is the control? Because they always do what's called a placebo control. Right. The control is supposed to be 0. And I said, let me tell you something. If fish oil helped anything, because I knew the cardiology one that causes congestive heart failure. So you're insane. It can't. I said, let me tell you something. I don't know the detail, but whatever the quote placebo was, it's a poison. All that it's saying is that was less of a poison than the fish oil. You know what it was? Was mineral oil. 4 grams a day of mineral oil. Mineral oil is horrific. And the FDA's rationale was, well, mineral oil doesn't change the blood, numbers. It doesn't react in the bloodstream. They never went, wait a minute, what's it do to a tissue? Completely screws it up. So I just look at this and go, my God, the cardiologists are now getting misled too, all over the place. But Cochrane destroyed it. And let me tell you something, pharmaceutical companies, if the fish oil worked for anything, what do pharmaceutical companies do? They have a lot of money, right? They run studies. You don't think they've run a fish oil study for dementia and everything else in the world? Sure they have. They all fail.
There was a pharmaceutical company that was marketing a fish oil. Wasn't there one recently?
Well, Lavazza, absolutely. It's an Irish company.
Right.
I think I don't know if it's Amgen or who the heck it is. Oh, absolutely, there's a pharmaceutical company. There's 3 of them that have pharmaceutical grade drug fish oil from pharma companies. So the money is there for all kinds of indications. They keep failing. Right. They fail. They can't get anything except hypertriglyceridemia, which means if you have triglycerides in the 400 to 500 range where they should be less than 100, the fish oil will lower it. Well, it displaces everything, so there's reasons why it lowers it. Doesn't mean you're any healthier. But they fail in everything. So people really need an education in this. And that's why, again, I did PEO Solution. It was mainly for physicians. But I make it understandable for the average person. And studies are right in the beginning. I think the first 2 or 3 chapters are studies and how nonsense becomes established truth, because people don't believe that either. How can something that doesn't work? Fish oil, for example, is the #1 supplement in America, and it's a poison. I don't even know what you say to that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I don't even know what you say. It's tragic. So I hope people will really look at this information and take it seriously, because you're really going to harm yourself. And it takes 18 weeks to get the negative effects of fish oil gone. They did an experiment to get it out of the cell membranes, 18 weeks. Which isn't that bad. It's 4.5 months, but thank God it's not 18 years to get rid of it,
Yeah. It just seems that there's so much bad information out there. And one of the reasons why we have so many COVID-related deaths or cases is we're such an unhealthy population. And I think
you hit it right in the head. It's not the viruses are getting stronger. We're getting weaker.
Yeah, exactly.
We get weaker by the day. You hit it right in the head. With the processed foods, that's it. It's only the processed foods.
Right.
It's ubiquitous. People are eating more. And now what have they done? They stayed home and they're eating more processed foods.
Right.
I think all the desserts are up. All the snack cakes are up. All the sodas are up. So you're going to see the next wave of a regular flu wiping out all kinds of people. I talk to my colleagues all the time about this. It's not that these things are stronger. There's always been this around. Right. There's always viruses and flus. It's nothing new at all. We are getting weaker and weaker and sicker. And we're not made to be dying in a nursing home as a zombie for 10 years. That's the way the average person kicks off. They're sick as the dickens, a zombie, for multiple years. And it's not supposed to be like that. You're just supposed to kind of die pretty quick.
Yeah. My grandmother had
Tragic.
Alzheimer for probably a couple years before she passed.
It's
And
horrible.
when she passed, to me, she had already passed because she didn't even know who I was the last time I saw her. So, I mean,
It's
her
got to be horrific.
body was still there, but the woman I knew was gone. So as far as I'm concerned, she died already once she had full-blown Alzheimer and really couldn't remember anything about who she was.
I know. Well, you got to understand the capillary is wicked small. It's so small they don't show up on X-rays, CT scans, MRIs. They don't show up. Okay, so they can't do anything with them. You can get it done, but it costs a fortune. Nobody's doing it outside of a research institute. They don't show up at all. So these things clog instantly from the bad omega-6, and it's as simple as that. So nobody needs to have problems of cancer, heart disease, or Alzheimer's knowing what I know. And if you read PEO Solution, you just don't need it. So thank God, I can't go back and say people that didn't know this, but the book just came out in 2015, so it's pretty, it's a pretty recent book. But you don't need to have the problem. And the athleticism will go through the roof. And what I showed you, we have runners, and he was shocked. I mean, I think there's 3 athletes. There's a medicinal chemist, Christine Bosch. She's actually the one that saw your interview, where you talked about me, and that's the reason. She's outstanding. She really does harm, and she can't believe what these oils do. So it's I get very technically scientific savvy people reading my work. And believe me, I've had quite a few try and find fault with it. I had one guy, his daughter was an MD, student. Find this guy wrong. He's too arrogant for me. Couldn't find anything wrong. Looked at hundreds and hundreds, every damn reference I had, because I don't face.
You get pushback though because you're affiliated.
Oh, they hate me.
You're affiliated with the company that creates an oil blend based on your recommendations.
Yeah, I consult. I do consult. I can't technically give names,
right?
Because I talk disease prevention,
but
so I can't get into trouble.
You get negative feedback saying, okay, this is just a clever way to be a contrarian in an industry and market a competitive product.
Well, I always follow the science. Everybody is selling something is my first comment. So I don't care if it's an MD, you're paying them, aren't you? If it's a pharmaceutical company, you're paying. So there's no problem getting paid for what the heck you do. Sure. My problem is somebody getting paid for harming you. And when you look and see the positive results that I get for people following what I tell them, it's all over the world. I don't care if you're black.
No one's taking your recommendations and getting the same negative effects of people that are taking high levels of fish oil. Now with fish oil, in the athletic community, the most common positive feedback that I often hear is that it helps individuals with joint health. They notice that their joints don't hurt as much. Now, in your opinion, is that because of some other factor?
It's the steroidal factor. Remember, acts as a steroid.
Yeah.
It will knock down pain temporarily, maybe 3 or 4 months. I don't know how it's going to be long term. Now, the oils do this properly by having PGE1. The parent oils, the plant-based oils, do it the right way. The fish oil knocks down all the EFA metabolism, so you're not feeling anything. That's not what you want.
Right. So you're
not
more
going to do it.
Else. Yeah.
They will have horrific long-term effects of that. That's what I warn every doctor. Short-term, you want to do this, do it. Long-term, you are going to harm every patient you touch. And they do. I get emails every week. The fish oil, number one, never worked for me. Or the negatives, I stopped it and the condition went away all the time. Because I don't solicit this stuff.
Sure.
People find my work and they just comment.
Yeah.
It's all the time. Thank God I found your work. I didn't know what the problem was. It was this stuff.
There we go.
I know.
This has been awesome. I really appreciate your time. So much good information. And BrianPeskin.com is your website. Or are there any other websites or anything else you want to
that's the one. So it's B as in boy, RIAN, P as in parent, ESKIN. It starts out, I gave a very good presentation on Lyme disease 2019. So people can see a lot of this stuff presented for physicians, but they will understand it. And there's papers there. If they go up to the top, they can see all kinds of studies. They can see my results from blood chemistry with explanations and different things I've done. They can see the omega-3 testing where you should be, which is somebody like me. But the omega-3 people make up where your blood levels should be. It's literally made up. It's like cholesterol. They make up the number. They don't say we used to have 250, and that's too high. There's too many people that aren't needing our drug. Make it 240, make it 230, make it 220, make it under 200. Do anything, just get everybody on a statin. Same thing with the fish oil stuff. They make it up. Yeah. They don't have anybody looking at what it really should be. So it's tragic. So I hope people will look there. There's a lot of papers. It won't cost you anything. And if you really want to learn the stuff, PEO Solution is the best. If you care about what do I eat, 24-hour diet is fantastic. If you have a diabetic in your family, it was written for diabetics and physicians. Those two books, that's it. If you care about cancer, Hidden Story of Cancer is there. It's available PDF file only. I used to do it in hardcover. Sold about 40,000 books, if you can believe that, with no advertising. But now I wanted to get away from just that one disease. That's where I started. And PEO Solution talks about it, but that is much more general. So PEO Solution and 24-hour diet are the best investment if you care about science. Learning the science of how you work from the world's best medical textbooks and medical journals. These are them. And they're in a league of their own. It's a bitch to do. I told people I'm never doing another book again because I'm a perfectionist. It has to be crystal clear. I'll rewrite something 100 times. I drive everybody around me sick because if it's not you can always change it. You can always add a comma. I said, it'll get done when there's no comma to change. You don't want to do it, I'll find someone that can.
Right.
You can leave tomorrow. Right. I don't care. I'm as brutal. And for me, writing these books, up at 4 a.m, go to bed at midnight, day after day after day after day. So when I say these oils, do it. Unbelievable. And an athletic person, 2 oils, 20 minutes before your workout, unbelievable. And then make sure you take 2 at bedtime because you recuperate at bedtime. You won't believe what this does. You won't believe how you sleep. It's unbelievable.
2 teaspoons before training?
No, capsules. I like capsules. Okay, capsules. I don't even do the liquid.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's a 725 milligram capsule, 4 capsules are a half a teaspoon. So it's a very reasonable dosage. Yeah, I'm actually a conservative guy. I'm very conservative when it comes to dosages and this stuff.
Yeah.
You can always take more. You can always take, an athlete like yourself could take double forever because you're under the gun. If you're under the gun physically or mentally, you can take double all day long. But I don't like seeing people waste their money. I always tell them, take the normal amount. You want to increase it by 50%. See if you see or feel a difference. If you don't need it. That's why I tell them with any supplement, if you don't think it works or you think it works, stop taking it. And if you don't see or feel a difference, it doesn't work. You're delusional. It's called a placebo effect.
100%. Well, hey, this has been fantastic. Let me stop recording. Make sure we don't lose this episode.